When peace feels unfamiliar, restoration begins here. This is P.I.P.E Podcast.
Welcome back to P.I.P.E Podcast. I'm Ann. When I was a little girl, I thought love was something that I had to earn. Maybe if I was smarter, I would be loved. Maybe if I was stronger, prettier. If I cooked and cleaned and did exactly as I was told, and I didn't ask too many questions, then maybe I would be valuable enough to be loved. I don't have the words to explain what I was doing back then, but I do now. I wasn't learning how to receive love. I was learning how to perform for it. And that performance followed me for most of my life. I wanted to be needed. I remember feeling like I wasn't important enough to be the person people called when something went wrong. People didn't always come looking for me. And instead of understanding that someone's need for me had nothing to do with my value, I took it personally. I felt unwanted, unappreciated, isolated. But deep down inside, I wanted to be needed. Because somewhere along the way, I had confused being needed with being loved. If someone needed something from me, I felt important. If I could help, I felt valuable. If I could fix the problem, I felt useful. And if I was useful, maybe I was lovable. Let me tell you, that's a dangerous way to measure your worth. Because when you and your value comes from being needed, you will eventually start giving pieces of yourself away just to make sure somebody still needs you. You'll say yes when you want to say no. You'll show up when you're exhausted. You'll tolerate things that hurt you. You'll make yourself uncomfortable so somebody else can remain comfortable. And that's exactly what I did. When no felt like rejection, there were so many times I said yes to things I didn't want to do. Not because somebody forced me. It was because I was afraid of disappointing them. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be wanted. And saying no felt dangerous because somewhere inside of me, no felt like rejection. What if they're upset with me? What if they don't like me anymore? What if they stop calling? What if they don't need me? And underneath all those questions was the real question. What if they don't love me? So I kept saying yes. And every time I said yes to something I didn't want, I was slowly saying no to myself. That's something I didn't understand until much later in life. When approval became my mirror, when somebody didn't approve of me, it hurt. When someone didn't recognize what I had done, it hurt. When I wasn't appreciated, it tore down my self-esteem. I became insecure. I questioned myself. because I was using other people's opinions like a mirror. If they approved of me, I felt good about myself. If they didn't, I didn't. Can you imagine how exhausting that is? Your identity changes depending on who's standing in front of you. One person's approval makes you feel worthy. Another person's rejection makes you question everything. I spent years living that way, trying to prove I'm good enough, I'm helpful enough, I'm strong enough, I'm worthy enough. Please see me. Please appreciate me. Please choose me. But constantly trying to prove myself came with a cost. I lost myself. Who was Ann? I became so focused on what everybody else needed that I didn't know what I needed. I became so focused on what other people wanted, I didn't know what I wanted. I spent so much time trying to become acceptable to everybody else that I never really stopped to ask, who is Ann? What does she like? What does she believe? What does she need? And what makes her happy? That's one of the saddest things about living for approval. You can spend your entire life surrounded by people and still never truly meet yourself. And it took me a long time to finally meet Ann. A very long time. It took me until my mid-60s. I was in my mid-60s before something finally became clear to me. I don't have to earn love anymore. Yes, my mid-60s. Do I wish I had learned that at 16? Absolutely. Do I wish somebody taught that little girl she didn't have to cook enough, clean enough, behave enough, look pretty enough, be useful enough to deserve love? Of course I do. But I'm not going to spend the freedom that I have today grieving over how long it took me to find it. I'm grateful that I found it. Somebody listening to me today might be in their 40s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and maybe you're just beginning to understand your worth. It's not too late. Don't waste another year criticizing yourself because you didn't learn sooner what nobody taught you in the first place. Learn it now. Live it now. You're here now. I thought I had to perform for God too. As my relationship with Yahweh became stronger, I realized something. I realized I had spent so many years performing for people that somewhere inside of me, I thought I had to perform for God too. Be good enough. Do enough. Get everything right. Then maybe He would love me. But Yahweh's love isn't a paycheck. I don't earn it by performing. He loves me because I am His. He created me, and I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I don't have to convince him that I'm valuable. He already decided I was valuable before I had accomplished anything, before I fixed anybody, before I proved anything, and before anybody on this earth approved of me. Yahweh knew me, and he loved me. That changed my relationship with him because I stopped coming to him trying to prove myself. I could finally come as Ann, serving from love instead of serving for love. I still love helping people. Healing didn't make me stop caring. I still want to serve. I still want to encourage. I still want to give. But now I'm learning there's a difference between serving somebody because I love them and serving somebody because I need them to love me. Those can look exactly the same from the outside, but inside, they feel completely different. When I serve from love, I can give freely. I don't need applause. I don't need recognition. I don't need you to owe me something afterwards. But when I'm serving for approval, there's this fear attached to it. Will you like me now? Did I do enough? Are you happy with me? Do you see my value now? Today, I'm learning to pay attention to that difference because how I treat myself matters. I can't talk about loving my neighbor while constantly abandoning myself. You can be disappointed in me. This might be one of the biggest changes in me. Today, somebody can be disappointed in me, and I don't immediately fall apart. Somebody can disagree with a decision I make, and I don't automatically assume I made the wrong decision. Somebody can misunderstand me, and I don't feel responsible for chasing them down and changing their opinion. That's freedom, because I've learned something. I cannot control what somebody thinks about me. I cannot change another person. The person that I'm responsible for is Ann. I'm responsible for my words, my behavior, my choices, my heart, and everybody else has to take responsibility for theirs. I don't have to explain myself to death anymore. I don't have to defend every decision. I know who I am. And I'm learning to let that be enough. Have some relationships changed because I've changed? Yes. And I'm learning to be okay with that. Because some people knew a version of me who always said yes. Some people knew a version of me who would explain herself until everybody else was satisfied. Some people knew a version of me who needed approval. That woman is healing. And when you change, relationships sometimes change with you. Healing can be lonely. I've experienced that. But I've also learned that loneliness isn't always a sign that you're doing something wrong. Sometimes you're simply creating space for healthier things. And that process can be uncomfortable, but it's worth it. What no means to me today, for most of my life, I felt like rejection. Today, no means something completely different. No means that I choose me. No means I finally have a voice. No means I don't have to abandon myself to keep somebody else comfortable. No means my needs matter too. No doesn't mean that I don't love you. No doesn't mean I'm angry. No doesn't mean that you're a bad person. Sometimes, no simply means no. I spent too many years without believing I had a voice. I finally found mine. And I'm not silencing her ever again. I was asked a question that made me really think. What if tomorrow nobody needed me? Nobody needed rescuing. Nobody had a problem for me to solve. Nobody needed me to prove anything. Nobody applauded. Nobody approved. Would I still know that I mattered? Now my answer is yes. And I couldn't have said that years ago. Today, I know I matter because Yahweh says I matter. I am his child. I am the head and not the tail. I am above and not beneath. My authority doesn't come from somebody needing me. My worth doesn't come from applause. My identity doesn't disappear when somebody doesn't approve. I know who I am, and I know whose I am. If you're listening today, and the only time you feel valuable is when somebody needs something from you, I want you to ask yourself something. Do I truly feel love for who I am? Or am I constantly becoming whatever everybody else needs me to be? Because I'm afraid they won't love the real me. That's the hard question. But it's worth answering. Because you deserve relationships where you can be loved, not just used. You deserve to know yourself outside of what you can provide. You deserve to sit down without feeling guilty because nobody needs anything from you at that moment. You deserve to discover what you like, what you want, what brings you joy. And you don't need anybody else's permission to begin. So put your trust in Yahweh. He cares for you. And begin learning to love and care for yourself too. I don't have to prove myself anymore. I spent most of my life asking people, do you need me? But underneath that question, what I really wanted to know was, do you love me? Now, I don't have to ask either question. I am loved. I am valuable. I matter. Not because of what I can do for somebody, not because somebody approves of me, and not because somebody needs me, or because I cooked enough, cleaned enough, gave enough, fixed enough, or sacrificed enough. I matter because Yahweh says I matter. I used to believe my worth came from what other people thought about me. Today I know my worth comes from Yahweh. And I finally agree with what he says about me. I'm still healing. I'm still growing. But I'm grateful for every step of this journey. Because I'm finally becoming a woman who doesn't need to perform to deserve love. A woman who can serve without disappearing. A woman who can love without abandoning herself. A woman who can say no and still know she's a good person. A woman who can be misunderstood and still know who she is. I don't have to prove myself anymore, and neither do you. So thank you for spending this time with me today. Remember, what you're connected to will either build your life or break it. Choose truth, choose love, choose your voice, choose Yahweh. And most importantly, plug into positive energy. I'll see you next time.
Thank you for sitting with us today, where restoration begins.